Okay, so these are some of the parts of the graph that you're going to have to be aware of. Okay, so we've got the word roots. So the roots are when basically y equals 0. It's where it crosses this x-axis. Now, not all quadratics will cross this axis. If the graph is above the axis, then it's never going to cross. Or if it's all below it and it's a negative, then it's never going to cross. So if in the quadratic formula you end up getting your calculator telling you that there's no solution, that is fine. That basically means it's not crossing the x-axis. Okay, so the roots are, we've got two roots here. We've got the negative root and we've got what's known as the positive root. From the roots, we can end up creating an equation, y equals x plus 5, and we've got x minus 2. Now you might sort of say, well, that's the wrong way, that was positive 2. But it's what makes this bracket equal 0. What makes this bracket equal 0 is positive 2. What makes this bracket equal 0 is negative 5. So this is the equation of this quadratic graph. Now, it's not always as easy as that, where you're just taking in the roots and it creates the equation. Sometimes this can become more complicated if the graph has been stretched or turned or reflected in any sort of way. But for today's lesson, that's all that you need to do to create the equation. So the next thing is the turning point. Now, the turning point is where the gradient changes from being negative and then it becomes positive. Now, this is known as a minimum turning point, but you can also get a maximum if the quadratic graph was going the opposite way. So the minimum turning point is down here. This is what's known as the turning point of the graph. Now, there is an important quality of the turning point, and that it is a reflection. So there's a line of symmetry, and it basically means that if you know the two roots, then you could sort of say, well, if I know that distance, okay, which in this case is 5 units, 6, 7 units, then the line of symmetry must be exactly halfway, which is 3.5 units in. So if I count 3.5 units in, 1, 2, 3.5, so that's minus 1, 1.5, which means the turning point would have to be minus 1.5. Now we can work out the y coordinate because I now have the equation here. So I can just put that in my calculator, minus 1.5 plus 5, and multiply it by minus 1.5 times, take away 2. And we get negative 12.25. Now that's come off my pen. Oh, there it is, negative 12.25. Now just check, that kind of makes sense. 12.25, so 12.25, negative 12.25. Finally, the y-intercept. This is just the same as in a straight line. So y equals mx plus c. C is the y-intercept. In this case, you're making it x equals 0. So where this graph crosses here, which in this case is here, minus 10. Now, if that wasn't an integer value, what you may have to do is multiply out the brackets or just let x equal 0. So 0 plus 5 is 5. 0 take away 2 is minus 2. 5 times minus 2 is minus 10. Or if you multiply the brackets, you'll see that the last number will be minus 10, which is where it crosses. Okay, so that's the intercept.